Hello, everybody. Welcome to Ladies Power Lunch. Thank you so much for joining. So grateful that you're able to make it here today for Free Gift Friday. I have with us today somebody that is a very personal friend of mine, close friend. Dr. Laura is my very dear friend, and she's joining us. Now, guys, you don't even understand what's happening here. She is joining us all the way from the United Kingdom. So it's 1 p.m. here. We usually try not to tell you the time, so it's evergreen, whatever. It's 1 p.m. here, but what time is it over there, Laura?
It's 6 p.m. on a Friday night here in the
Oh,
UK.
wonderful. And you decided to spend your Friday night with us. We feel pretty honored, I have to say. I also have on the call
I
with
am
us
honestly.
today Tiffany. Tiffany is a member of our Ladies Power Lunch group, and I'm so happy that you're able to make it. So, Laura, I invite you, please, would you share with us, share with our audience, who are you? I know you, I love you, but they don't. So tell them who you are and the wonderful things that you're doing in the world.
Thank you, Davia. It's lovely to be here today. Yes, on this Friday evening. And I've been a psychotherapist for many years. And recently I have transitioned into coaching, sex, love, and relationship coaching specifically. And I've had my own coaching so that I've really dived into the whole world of coaching. Coaching training, I've had my own coaching. Actually, all of it, interestingly, it's all American. I haven't had any British coaching. Um, so psychotherapy and coaching, and then the last piece has been tantra. Um, so my coaching training came from a tantric approach, and I've also got to love all things tantra and associated with the goddesses, especially ageless goddesses, as I work with older women. Yeah, that's where I am right now.
Awesome. So, Laura, tell us, when clients come in to see you, what is it that is inviting them to step into your space? What is it that they're coming to you for?
Well, usually it's some kind of change around sex, love, and relationships, particularly connection to sexuality, sensuality, vitality, connection to their body, often feeling like they've become disconnected. And there's this sense that maybe connecting to this part of themselves is um, is part of their larger desires in life. I think a lot of people that come to me may be experiencing blocks and barriers to achieving desires and goals and success in all areas of life. It might be business, life, relationships, and then they get a sense that they're cut off from the kind of life force in some way.
I see. I see. So when we decided to have this conversation, you
Mm.
you said that, love is the foundation of healing and that people can really thrive through self-love. Say a little bit more
Yeah,
about that because I know that we've been, especially since we've all been inside with the pandemic and quarantine, we've been bombarded with images of self love and self care. But
yeah,
what
yeah.
does this really mean? And how can we actually use this to get the foundation of healing?
Yeah, yeah, it's true. We have been bombarded, especially in February with Valentine's Day. It's unavoidable. Well, for me and my clients, I think self care is a really important part of any um, self growth, self improvement focus. To look after yourself. That's the basics of any kind of growth and change. Is to look after all the key areas of your life, to care for your health and your well-being. Self-love is really at the heart of any self-care practice. because, you know, as I said, it is the foundation of healing. Many times when people have blocks and barriers to achieving what they want in life, to achieving their desires, the blocks are often grounded in some kind of low self-worth, low self-esteem, low confidence. And self-love is really key in helping to soften and work on those pieces that are often rooted in perhaps shame, pain, guilt, regret. And especially when we can get into embodied self-love practices, then we can actually begin to melt and soften that hardness that, has maybe been there a lifetime, maybe started in childhood, with those early imprinting, and reinforced over a lifetime social cultural conditioning. So, it's all that stuff's been in there for a long time. So it's hardly surprising that it manifests in these blocks. We become stymied by these blocks. And self-love, in my experience, is the way out of that trap, way out of that darkness into the light.
So let me make sure I'm getting this clearly.
Mm-hmm.
What you're saying is that for some of us who might be looking at our lives and it might not be showing up in the way that we want it to,
Mm-hmm.
perhaps the thing that's blocking us is self love or lack
Yeah.
thereof.
Yeah, I'm saying that. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. So, say more about that, about how we can get past these blocks and really actually start loving ourselves more. How do we even go about doing that?
Yeah, so I talked a little bit about embodied practices there, and one of the really famous, well-known practices is Louise L. Hay's mirror work, um, which is, I mean, she advocated that
Mm-hmm,
decades ago
mm-hmm.
when her work was all a bit out there, all a bit woo-woo, and but actually now it's incorporated into a lot of popular self-help books. And her practice was to look in the mirror and say, I love you every day.
Really?
And yeah, really. And to say that in a meaningful way, to say it and mean it, to profess that love to yourself on a daily basis, looking deep into your eyes and saying, preferably with your name or a sweet sentiment. So I might look in the mirror and say, I love you, Laura. I really love you. So it comes with meaning. That's one of the key practices. And, clients who find that very difficult, sometimes they may say, well, I tried it and I can't do it. It's impossible, or I feel stupid, or something like that. I always say, well, if you feel like a complete phony, or if you feel silly, you can overcome that initial awkwardness by just being open and willing to the practice that it may work for you. And if it feels really untrue, you could start with something that is more authentic, such as, I'm open to trying this practice. I'm willing to see if I can learn to love myself. Because that's a good, authentic starting point. If saying I love you feels too much, start with something that really rings true for you.
I like the suggestion of saying something that is authentic because I know I am perhaps not the biggest proponent of affirmations because I
Mm-hmm.
think that sometimes they can actually push us in the opposite direction from where
Yeah.
we're trying to go if we're saying something that doesn't feel true, that doesn't ring true, but
Yeah.
saying that I am willing to
Mhm.
try or am willing to learn, that
Mhm.
might feel a lot more true for a lot of people. You know, I'm sure with your practice and your extensive experience, you've had lots of people who have come through your your practice, and they have been shining examples of how someone can go from maybe not thinking about self-love to actually embodying it. Do you have anything that comes to the top of your mind? Any stories that you might want to share with us?
Yeah, I did. As I was telling you about that, saying some clients, have a real block. I was thinking of a young woman, actually, two, maybe I'm thinking of an amalgamation of two young women because they were quite similar in that they were quite young, incredibly beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
I used to see them in my London practice, and both of them had the same issue in that they just were caught in this self-critical loop all the time, unbelievably, because they were so gorgeous. And it seemed like there was um, this is a very common thing actually, of course, these days, because they both seem to start their days the same way. This is very interesting, the similarities on Instagram,
Oh, Lord, no.
looking at all the beautiful photographs of all these perfect women. And I think, a lot of that was what was leading
Mm-hmm,
to them,
mm-hmm.
starting their day, getting hooked into these unrealistic images, and then going and doing whatever they needed to do, to make themselves up. And so they were in this constant state of comparison.
Mm-hmm.
And, they would be so harsh and critical about small parts of their bodies, a tiny little stomach that wasn't, you know, um, wasn't washboard flat, wasn't celebrity worthy, or maybe a few little wrinkles starting to appear, or a photograph of a social occasion and their hair was out of place, and I recommended the self-love practice to both of them, and both of them had that immediate reaction, like, silly, and I don't love myself, and I could never say that, and what's the point of it? Lots of these quite strong reactions. And yeah, both of them did learn to say those things over a period of time, I have to say. Particularly one of them who we actually left it for some months and then came back to it when we'd done some other work.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I find that the embodied practices that I do these days in coaching, I sometimes use in therapy, where we're connecting to the heart space, the heart chakra, that place of love and compassion and healing. If we can just drop into the bodies and connect to that energy, that really can make it feel more achievable and real for people as well. Yeah, definite success stories. It really can be done. No matter how resistant somebody feels to it, in my experience.
I love that story because how many of us are looking at other people's highlight reels and comparing it to our darkest moments, you know,
Mm.
and taking a look at Instagram first thing in the morning, every single morning, and comparing yourself to that, that's definitely going to be perhaps demoralizing for the even those of us who are the most secure within ourselves, you
Yeah,
know.
absolutely. And it's so common.
It
So common.
is. It absolutely is. I would love for you to share with us, because I know you have lots and lots of stories. Share with us something about the things that we should really be avoiding in order to embrace this idea of self-love.
Yeah, so we really want to be able to connect to what self-love would mean if we coming from a place where we are really loving ourselves, we're coming from a place where we love ourselves in life, in love, in relationships and business, we can really trust that our bodies will tell us what we don't want and move us towards what we do want. Because when we're coming from a place of self-love, we know what's best for us.
Mm-hmm.
So if we want to avoid the things that aren't in integrity, aren't honoring our higher self, we really don't need to look much further than what our emotions are telling us. If we're really coming from a place of self-love, we know when somebody isn't good for us.
Mm-hmm.
We know when the job isn't good for us.
Mm-hmm.
We know when the favor being asked of us isn't something that is aligned with our higher self. So it's really tapping into our intuition, being aligned with our higher self, and avoiding anything that means we are not in alignment.
That makes perfect sense. So, what what words of wisdom do you have for us? What recommendations can you leave us with to help us to really embody our self-love practice even more?
Mm-hmm. Well, certainly Louise Hay's mirror work. I would definitely recommend that. And I think I would also say, that a lot of people say self-love is selfish, but you can't pour from an empty cup.
Cannot.
And to expect to ruffle some feathers, because if you are coming from a place of self-love instead of people pleasing, then not everybody is going to be happy about it.
This is true.
Yeah. So expect some resistance and stay with what's good for you.
Awesome. I am very pleased to have on the call with us today Tiffany. And Tiffany, did you have questions or comments, or was there
Um,
anything that was standing out for you during this
so
conversation?
much. I love, first of all, thank you so much for bringing even more clarity to this topic, because I work with some clients on self-love. And I think that unfortunately, as so many things, there's a commercialized version of
Yes.
self-love and self-care that is circulating in the populace right now. And it's really cute as a hashtag and as a tagline. But like you said, it's not always pretty, and you are going to have resistance. And one of the things that I noticed, and I just wanted your feedback on, is isn't it just as important to embrace those shadow aspects, all of you? So that part about self-love where it's like, these are the good things about myself, these are the things I love about myself, but also embracing those things that you want to change, that you notice are not working for you. For example, if you're procrastination person, or if you tend to live in clutter, or if you tend to jump to conclusions, if you tend to think in worst case scenarios, you can still love yourself with qualities that you want to change. But I think that it's important to embrace those qualities of yourself, even if they're not in the quote unquote positive category yet, because that's still who you are. So I still love me for my strengths. I still love me with my weaknesses, acknowledging that there's certain weaknesses that I want to make changes to. So I think sometimes we forget that part where it's like, oh, self-care, self-love, massage, facials, etc. But if they're to embracing the whole self unapologetically and unconditionally. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me of that, because I absolutely, wholeheartedly agree with you. And that's about radical self-love. So absolutely, the shadow self, the shadow side. Radical self-love is loving all of ourselves, not just the bits that we most prize, but all of the bits that come from all the painful places, all the imprinting and the conditioning. It's only by loving all of ourselves that we can have self-love. Can't just have self-love for bits of ourselves and not for others. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for reminding us of that really important point.
I
Yeah.
love that. I love that. And I also, like I was saying at the very beginning, we've been inside for a while and everybody's been talking about self love and self care. But I agree with you, Tiffany, that it's sort of been a little bit surface. It's not really that deep care that we need to be taking care of ourselves that people are talking about. They're talking about, yes, go get a massage. And certainly that's a fantastic thing for us to do for ourselves. Certainly, go get your manicure or whatever it is. But identifying that you are worthy just for being, just for existing. You have to do absolutely nothing. You don't even have to get out of bed in the morning. You're
Yeah.
still worthy. Being able to make that distinction, I think that's really the heart of what self-love means to me. What do you think, Laura?
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. So, any books or websites or podcasts or anything that you have come in touch with that you think maybe we can tap into to help us along with our self-love journey?
Yeah, so actually, when you asked me a while ago, it was before I had spent the month of February looking at self-love in my Ageless Goddess community. And I was talking about how much I loved Jan Sincero's books
Mm-hmm.
because they have components, large components that are based in self-love and connecting to divine and connecting to source. And they're really funny as well, especially if you listen to the audiobooks. She's just such a great narrator, great writer and great narrator. Anything by Louise L. Hay, of course, because she was the absolute godmother of self-love. And I've also discovered some new books. So there's Radical Acceptance by Tara Brach, which is a great read in this area, and Extreme Self-Care by Cheryl Richardson. And there's a new one actually that I haven't read yet called Radical Self-Love by Gala Darling. So that's on my reading list.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that with us. I could have us have this conversation for a really long time because I feel like it's something that we are not as focused on, even though we think we are. We tend to just stay right on the surface of it. But sometimes, like you said in the beginning, it's this lack of self love, it's this lack of feeling worthy that holds us back from experiencing so much joy in our lives and even in our businesses. So, tell me, how can people continue this conversation with you? How can they stay in touch with you, Laura?
So you can find me on social media, on all the social media, as Dr. Laura Monk. My website's drlauramonk.com. I have an Ageless Goddess community for older women, which is drlauramonk.com/ageless-goddess. And the registration for that actually is not open yet, but if you want to come and be a part of my beta group, my experimental Facebook group where we're learning together, you can just friend me on Facebook and ask for an invite, and I will invite you.
I love that. That's wonderful. And so it's
Mhm.
Free Gift Friday, and
Yeah.
really excited. Do you have something to give away to one lucky member of our audience today?
Yeah, I would love to give away a discovery session. So, this is for my Grace program, which is a coaching package. And I do this really beautiful call at the start, which is a Grace discovery call. And it's quite a long call. It's a really high value call. It's about 2 to 3 hours, and I go through the whole desire system about what it is that you really desire, what are the blocks and barriers, and how we might help achieve all of the desires that you have. So, again, on my website, that's drlauramonk.com/grace. And you'll see you can book a discovery call, and there's a code that I will give you now, because you can only buy it otherwise. So the code is discover free, all in capitals as one word. Discover free.
Awesome. That is such a generous offer for the listeners of our show today. And we really, really appreciate you taking the time to come hang out with us. This is
Oh,
wonderful.
thank you. Thank you. You're so welcome. I really enjoyed it.
I want to say thank you to those of you who joined us over here on Zoom. It's been a pleasure having you here. Thank you, Tiffany, for presenting your question to the group. And thanks to everybody who joined us over on Facebook. I look forward to see you guys for the next show, and have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Bye, everybody.